Well, all eyes today have been on the Independent Commission Against Corruption in New South Wales and hearings which could decide the future of the Premier. Now, Gladys Berejiklian would have been watching most of it, you'd imagine, given the fact that her former boyfriend, disgraced MP Daryl Maguire, was being grilled in the witness box. But it wasn't the grilling many had predicted, because apart from many arguments about minor details, Maguire put his hands up to a whole bag of wrongdoing. Now, the first mea culpa came after counsel assisting argued that his parliamentary and electorate officers were basically a cover for his work with private company Gateway International. He admitted to monetising his office, sought profit from his status as a parliamentarian, took clips on business deals, forced Chinese immigrants into deals in which they paid their own wages in exchange for visas.
And I take it that you understood at the time that you weren't permitted to use your Parliament House office, or for that matter your parliamentary staff and resources, in the way that you did for the benefit of, for example, Gateway International.
Yes.
Right? And so do you agree that one of the things that Gateway International was seeking to sell as part of its international business network was influence and experience that would reach to high levels of government, at least in Australia?
Yes.
And worse still, his Macquarie Street office was a delivery point for deliveries of cash commissions.
Do you agree that on more than one occasion you received deliveries in your Parliament House office of thousands of dollars in cash associated with a scheme involving the obtaining of Australian visas for Chinese nationals?
Yes.
But then we got a sign in those hearings that Daryl Maguire may have made a conscious decision to keep the Premier out of the line of fire. He was asked about his payments from Chinese contacts and was very quick to defend himself against any suggestion that he took money to give those contacts access to ministers or even a Premier.
There's a number of things that you have so far admitted to doing that you've agreed was wrongful. Why would you draw the line at something like a fee of the kind that I've just identified?
Well, that would be going too far. That would be going too far to do that.
So not too far to monetise your office in the way that I've identified, but too far to, monetise it in relation to an introduction to a government official?
A minister or someone like that, or the Premier.
I've got to say, it was hard to believe. He's either telling the truth or he's decided to ensure the Premier, his former girlfriend, is not compromised. Now, the problem was ICAC did cite a meeting Maguire set up in 2012 with his Chinese contacts to meet former Premier Barry O'Farrell. He received more than $5,000, but he claimed it was for costs. It was not a commission to meet the Premier. Meanwhile, outside the hearing rooms, the Premier fronted the media to give us an update on COVID-19 infections. Now, for the record, there were 13 new cases, more than Victoria's single figure of 4, which is telling. All those infections in New South Wales were community transmissions, but linked to known clusters. Now, as a result, the government reversed its decision made only yesterday to lift some restrictions related to outdoor venues and concerts for this Friday. That's all off. But it was a very different Gladys Berejiklian today. Now, yesterday, you'll recall, she allowed reporters to throw a barrage of questions at her and wasn't even prepared to control the press conference.
Didn't you tell your staff that it was outside his electorate, and why didn't it raise alarm bells for you that he was lobbying for matters outside his electorate? It must have, Premier. Premier, you've been in this place for 17 years. At any other time, has an MP spoken to you about getting a cut on a land deal?
Well, look, at the end of the day, we know that members have multiple interests.
Sorry, Premier, yes or no? Premier, ICAC says he has a case to answer or corruption allegations against him in 2018. He forced him out of Parliament. Isn't that the moment where professionally you have to say, I either remain Premier or I'm with this man?
Well, again, please look at my comments yesterday, which I answered extensively, Mr Clennell.
It was a train wreck press conference. She allowed my colleague here at Sky News, Andrew Clennell, to dominate the press conference. But today she was back to her best and right on the front foot.
I have been honestly overwhelmed and sustained by the support the people of this state have shown me in the last few days, and I will repay that by continuing to work for you, to be your #1 advocate, to keep you safe, to keep you employed. That is my job. It is my honour and privilege to do it every day that I come to work. And my message, excuse me, let me finish. Let me finish, okay? I've given you your turn for the last 3 days, let me finish.
There you go. Let me finish. But inside the Parliament House, Labor, well, they were still targeting the Premier again over what she didn't do when Maguire boasted of some of his dirty deals.
You were caught on tape telling Daryl Maguire you didn't need to know that bit, when informed he would earn a secret commission from a property deal. Why wouldn't you want to know about this corruption in your government?
Mr Speaker, I say this. The Leader of the Opposition sat in the Cabinet with Eddie Obeid and Eddie McDonald. Did she know that they were doing corrupt activity?
Leader of the Opposition.
Now, this is nowhere near the end of this. There's so much more to play out, not just from tomorrow's grilling of the Premier's ex, but Labor will throw everything they can way beyond this week. It could conceivably get to the point where the noise and the distraction becomes so loud, well, her colleagues will refuse to contend with the noise.